do what's called controlled breathing. You press a key, and the player will hold his breath for a moment, and then breathe out, and then continue to do that. Take a breath and pause between each breath. So when the pause happens, it's the most accurate time to fire. This a lot more realistically models the way someone really uses a weapon. Also new to the new game is the ability to mantle. One of the really highly impressive features people wanted from the first game. Another thing that we're doing, you've probably seen this in a lot of games when you walk up to a wall, first-person weapon goes down. We're taking this a step further. Oh. Good shot.
Live demo.
Yes, live demo. Let's try that again. Take two. Do it over here where there's no bad guys trying to shoot. We actually have what we call a first-person weapon collision system. As you see here, my weapon will actually collide and push back against objects in the world. Full collision, and then if I move too far, it will push back, and then I have a moment before it goes down. This not only gives you a much better feel that your weapon is an object in the real world, but also prevents the issue that you'll see in a lot of games where you're running around and your weapon's constantly very quickly going up and down. You actually have a moment to figure out that you're colliding before the view goes down, or the weapon goes down. Now you'll notice there's not a lot of elements on the HUD. We went with a goal for this game to keep the HUD as uncluttered as possible. We think that makes the game a lot more immersive. As you'll see, like my stamina indicator here, once my stamina regains, it just disappears. We call this our HUD on demand system. You get the information when you want it, when you don't need it, or when you need it, when you don't need it, it just goes away. But there also are times when you just may want to find out, what is my player's health, what is my magazine count, and for that we've created what's called our tactical view. I'll show that here. As you know, in the first game we had this overhead map that showed you where you needed to go and what to do. But one of the problems with that was, especially in a map like this with 3 different levels of a building, if you needed to go to the top floor, you didn't know where to go. Now we have, with our tactical view, an actual icon in the world that appears only when you want it. And as you see, when you press your tactical view, all of your HUD information, your magazine count, etc., appears and fades away or disappears when you don't want it. This prevents the problem you see in a lot of games that have icons in the world like this. If there were enemies here, this icon would be obstructing and distracting me from the fighting. But when I want to have fighting, I just let go of the key, it goes away, and I continue my battle. Another interesting feature of Heroes of Stalingrad is what we call our squad command system. I can give commands to my squads or fire teams, high-level tactical commands. I'll just say, attack the North Wall. My AI will follow those commands dynamically using cover and engaging the enemy to take that objective. And as you'll see in the tactical view, now that I've given the order, that icon's highlighted, showing that they've been ordered to attack that objective. What's great about this is in multiplayer, when you're playing with a human squad, everyone in your squad will also be able to see where they need to go and attack. This was kind of an issue in the first game, people not being able to, we had a command system, but people weren't really able to figure out exactly where it was they were supposed to go. We were joking yesterday, I did an entire demo without dying, but today the AI's got one up on me.
So what is the objective of the territory mode? I mean,
the objective of the territory mode is to, depending upon the level on which team you're on. In this instance, I'm trying to capture all of these objectives in the map. And the enemy team in this particular level is trying to defend the objectives. One of the kind of cool new features about this is what we call lockdown. One of the problems you often run into with attack, defend game types is oftentimes as a defender, let's say you have to defend all of these objectives on a large map, it might take 10 or 15 minutes for the level to end. So if you play as a defender really well, you're actually just defending for a very long time. Defending really well will only make you win the level 10 or 15 minutes later. One of the features we've implemented now is called lockdown, which means that each objective, when you're defending, has a timer. And if you're able to defend very aggressively, you might be able to, let's say the first objective, you have to hold it for 3 minutes. If you're able to defend very aggressively, hold the enemy down, you do what's called locking them down, and the defending team can actually win before the full time limit of the level is up. This solves a gameplay issue that we had a lot in the first game, which is how to make attack-defense gameplay on larger scale real-world maps.
So how do they achieve the lockdown? Is it just killing just guys, or what's the mechanic there?
They achieve the lockdown by preventing the enemy from capturing the objective. So if they're able to hold that objective and prevent the enemy from getting it for a certain amount of time, it varies by objective, then they've achieved the lockdown. As you can see, essentially to capture an objective, an enemy has to move into the area and hold it for a certain amount of time. You've got a progress bar that fills up. If they can prevent that from happening, then they achieve the lockdown. Does that make sense, or am I not being very clear?
No, I'm sure you are being very clear. Maybe I just don't understand. So it's kind of like a battlefield thing. You actually have to hold the objective and then wait a few minutes before you capture it.
Yeah, essentially, let me see if I can demonstrate this for you. Okay, as you can see here, the bar at the bottom represents the relative number of forces in the area.
Okay.
Red means there's a certain amount of Russians, black is the Germans. There's more Russians than Germans here. A little slow on the draw. There's more Russians than Germans there, so the Russians were holding the objective. But as you can see, we got more Germans now in than Russians, and the Germans start to capture the objective. When the bar hits the end, they've captured it. To perform a lockdown, the enemy team will need to keep their forces in that objective long enough to prevent the enemy team from capturing it for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
It's basically a way to reward a very good defending team.
So the defending team is basically trying to capture the objective too, kind of?
They're trying to, in some instances, they're just trying to prevent the enemy from capturing them. In other cases, once they've been captured, they can recapture them to hold the enemy off. We kind of have it's kind of a dynamic thing where once you capture 2 objectives in a row, the first one locks. Because what you don't want is what we call the round robin scenario, where guys are just constantly moving back and forth and the battle doesn't have any flow. So if 2 objectives are captured, the first one locks and the battle keeps moving forward. Alright, I'm going to show you a little bit of the machine gun functionality in the new game. We had bipod mounted machine guns in the first game. There was a lot of complaints that they were somewhat difficult to deploy on objects. You kind of had, it was kind of fiddly. You kind of had to look right at the object, get it just the right angle. This is common in a lot of games that have bipod mounted machine guns. So we've done a lot of work to streamline this. You can walk up to any object in the world that's at the right that looks like you can deploy on it. It doesn't matter if you're looking at it. Just press your iron sights key, you deploy, move away, you undeploy. Very streamlined and easy to use. One of the other cool features about this system is, in a lot of games, when you have a weapon like this, you'll deploy it, but then the gun moves around like this, kind of like you're just lifting it up and moving it around. In Heroes of Stalingrad, we actually model proper movement, camera movement, and locking the bipod in place. This isn't just a visual feature, this is actually a gameplay feature.